Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to one of our regular COVID briefings. And apologies for the delay. We're off Wi-Fi and we're back to like the blue cord. So, that was this morning's COVID-related IT challenge, but I think we're up and running and folks can connect with us. And so we're glad to be able to get started. Today, we're going to focus on our Youth Connect, which programs, which of course for us and for Albuquerqueños, it's all about the city programs for kids. So we're going to do our general COVID update, and then we're just going to kind of set some expectations and lay out timeframes. As we know, there are lots of parents out there, myself included, who are very anxious, not only, of course, about what's happening with school and so forth, but right now is the traditional time. It seems so soon, but right now is actually usually when you sign up for all sorts of things for the summer. So the good news is we're going to be doing most of those type of signups in April and May, and that's going to give us a lot more clarity in terms of what color level we're going to be at and so forth. So parents, take a deep breath for summer. We are going to have summer programs, and how many kids we can accommodate we'll really know better in April, and that's when most of the registrations are going to happen in April and May. So right now, everyone can focus on just getting through the rest of the school year for March. So, okay, but let's begin with our COVID situation here in Albuquerque. And at a high level, of course, we're in the yellow area, yellow level of restrictions for the public health order. And that's continuing. So let's talk about, I guess, first where we're at. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to a PowerPoint here if this works. But let me give some shout outs to our host to enable me to screen share so I can do that. So give us 1 minute, but I will tell you that unofficially, as of yesterday, we are basically at the same level we were last week. So we haven't made any more progress. And so now I think I'll be able to share that with you. Okay, so if we look at the cases here, you can see our criteria. The good news, we did continue. And again, this is sort of our unofficial off-week estimate. The state gives the official estimates on the opposing week. So we'll get the official numbers from the state. But where we think we're at is positivity rate has dropped a little bit, which is great. But in terms of gating criteria, we are seeing a flattening, we think right now, of the positive cases per 100,000. And remember, that's got to get down below 8 for us to get to green. And so, we're still basically like, we need to cut that in half, obviously. So we got a ways to go, I think, for green. And, our hope is certainly spring, and that's still the case. But I think just a tiny bit of sobering statistics, at least when we look at our unofficial projection right now. So we need to keep doing the things that we have been doing, whether it's getting tested, face masks, social distancing, and continuing to register for the vaccine. And we'll talk about some of that in a little bit. We also know that businesses are reopening, workers are coming back, and some amazing things like having breakfast at a restaurant inside is now possible. But we would also anticipate a little bit of, flattening out of numbers as we do that. I mean, I think that's just like human nature, right? You're going to open things up a little bit. We're going to see a little uptick. The key is we want to see it just a little and then continue that downward trend. So this also could just be a reflection of what happens when you switch from red to yellow. And I think also a reason why we have gating criteria and levels, because it shows that as we start to open up a little bit, we start to see, a change in the numbers. So I think it's just a reflection of the fact that these regulations have really, in many ways, kept us healthy as best that we can during a pandemic. And they're still very much a part of our lives, and they affect the numbers. Now, let's talk a little bit about where we're at with respect to other cities. And we always like to share this information with folks. And, here again, we continue to see what is, I think, a very special thing for Albuquerque. And basically, in short, if you look at some of these key numbers, the confirmed COVID cases to date, and you look at Albuquerque, we're again the number one on this list, meaning the fewest cases compared to Denver and Tucson and Los Angeles and Phoenix and Salt Lake and El Paso and Oklahoma City. Only Austin has a better total in this category. And if you look at total testing, we continue to be at least at the top category of these cities, which is good to see. And if you look at deaths, we continue to be, other than Denver, which is sort of an extraordinary zero for this time frame, where we look good in comparison there. But positivity rate, here again, we're at the top of the list, other than Denver, sort of almost tied with us. So we continue to show that I think our city is healthier than these other cities with respect to resilience and dealing with the pandemic. And it's a very good thing for everyone who lives here. And so a credit to our healthcare system, of course, the state and the county and the city and everyone who's working to keep these numbers low. And if we take a look also at how this is playing out over time, I do want to remind everyone that this Albuquerque story has been the story throughout the pandemic. So you can see Albuquerque, this is the cumulative cases per 100,000, and Albuquerque having the fewest all the way through. We did get passed by Austin, really. Look, they just have done an exceptional job in the fall and winter. But other than Austin, we continue to be at the bottom of this list, which is the right end, the good end of this list. And, is a reminder too, just around the country. I mean, you see some of these curves. I mean, if you look at El Paso, that's just a very dangerous curve. It's very hard to look at that and think about the lives that actually impacts. And you also see some of the cities that, whether it's LA or Salt Lake or Phoenix, these are, they're in a totally different place than we are right now with respect to the pandemic. Now, if you look at another item here, and I'm gonna skip through the tested is sort of interesting, but there's a lot of lines and a lot of kinks. We'll send that out if you want to look at it, but I don't think there's so much to highlight there other than, again, we're doing good, and it's same with deaths. I do want to pause on this one here. This is again, the positivity rate or percent positive cases. And here, this is where you see, again, Albuquerque always doing better than everyone except for Denver. So credit to them. But again, we've just always done a much better job than Los Angeles, Austin, Salt Lake, Tucson, Phoenix throughout the pandemic. And actually, sorry, this is just throughout the year, although that story is mostly true for the pandemic, other than about a month in October. So for this year, again, we continue to do just much better, noticeably better, and meaningfully better than the cities around us. Okay, let's talk a little bit about vaccination. This, of course, is where we're at in terms of the Albuquerque metro, sort of county area. We are in a situation where if you compare us to the state of New Mexico, we're basically the same as the state. We know that we have a huge percentage of the population, especially in the Rio Grande Valley. And so in some ways, this is a good thing because we're denser. We should be easier to vaccinate, but we also have more high-risk populations. Anyway, those numbers at least look in line and appropriate. And as a New Mexico story and an Albuquerque story, much better than the rest of the country in terms of percentage of vaccination. And so despite all the, technical hangups that happen when you're dealing with an emergency, whether it's, codes wrong or notifications and so forth, look, we are in a really good place. And once again, I'm proud to be in New Mexico and Albuquerque. And it shows on this map too, where New Mexico continues to be one of the top 5 states in terms of percentage vaccination. And that's a thing I'm grateful for. Now, let's change gears a little bit, I think, to some of our youth programs. And let me go ahead and switch a few things here. Okay, now that we're back on screen, want to let you know, of course, with respect to vaccinations, if you're offered the shot, please take it. And also want to remind everyone that we still have 21 points of dispensation. These are areas where shots are given. And so the City Emergency Operations Center continues to support these efforts. And again, we're not involved in that sort of back-end database. That's the Department of Health. But in terms of mechanically getting venues where then everyone can get those shots, we're working with Walgreens, we're working with Loveless, we're working with, there's actually about a dozen or so entities to provide these areas. And so, for example, we have 13 scheduled in March for about about 6,000 doses of the vaccine. And of course, good news that the Johnson & Johnson single shot was approved. And as was shared yesterday, about 17,000 of those should be coming to New Mexico. So we continue to be able to basically, when those shots arrive, when those vaccines arrive, Albuquerque is working with all our partners to get those shots in arms. And statistically, we're doing a very good job of that compared to the rest of the country. Now, let's transition a little bit to talking about our kids and our families. We know that, general vaccination efforts are certainly helping across a number of fronts, and fewer restrictions are also something I think all of us are certainly grateful for and enjoy. But we also know that working families continue to need immediate support. And throughout the pandemic, the city has provided significant distance learning and youth programming for families and essential workers. And so for us, as a reminder, basically almost all of our community centers have been converted to essential worker childcare, and that continues to be the case. Also, our early childhood programs have been up and running. I think there's around 20 or so sites that those have been happening, and this has been being done throughout the pandemic in the spirit of trying to not allow folks to fall through the cracks during a pandemic, especially individuals with no other choice really for childcare. Now, as we look out over the summer, a couple of statistics to share on this. We've provided over 500,000 hours of childcare to frontline workers. And as we continue these programs, we are planning for the summer. And so as we look out at the summer, we see, historically, as a reminder, right, when school's out, Albuquerque takes care of tens of thousands of kids that are in our city. And so between 10 and 20% of the kids that actually live here end up being in a city program one way or the other. And last year during the pandemic, we were able to do that, but in a limited fashion. And so this year, we're trying to figure out exactly what we're going to be able to offer. So if we think about 2020 in our State of the Summer report, which is available online and we've sent out several times if folks want to read the details. But we basically last summer were able to provide, again, during the pandemic, 42 in-person programs with about 59,000 participants in attendance, and 28 virtual programs with about 18,000 participants in attendance. Now, we've also invested about $2.3 million in youth wages. So as a reminder, too, we hire about 1,000 youth every summer to actually, sort of like high school and college kids are working with elementary and middle school kids has been the traditional setup for a long time. And that in and of itself is actually really important for our community, for giving kids continued enrichment, keeping them out of trouble, and also just teaching them the value of a great job where they can help out kids younger than themselves. So as we go into right now, if we look at the summer and considering if we're in, a sort of yellow framework, we can accommodate, probably 3,000 more youth in our programs. But as we move to hopefully green, I believe I'm confident in that, and even turquoise for hopefully the beginning of the summer, but maybe later in the summer, we'll continue to be able to ramp up and take more kids. So to be able to do that, there's a lot on the back end because of the staffing and the hiring and the scheduling and all of this, because all of this occurs under COVID safe protocol. And so I'm going to hand it over to the woman who's in charge of all our youth programming across a number of departments and coordinates it. And she'll walk us through some of the details. So Kristen Chavez-Smith, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Matt. I don't know if you want to start my video. There we go. Hi, everyone. So let me just pull up my notes and we can get started. So yeah, like the mayor said, come January, the city goes into full planning mode with summer programs. We're currently in that right now. And our goal this summer is really to offer our summer youth programs for the city of Albuquerque at the maximum capacity possible while keeping everyone safe, which includes our staff and our kids. We got a really good start to this with the virtual youth job fair. So the past couple of years we've had the youth job fair. It's gone really great. We went virtual this year on February 6th to start hiring all those employees that will serve in our youth programs this summer. We are still hiring for those programs. So if you know someone that's looking for a job, or you're looking for a job this summer, you can go to cabq.gov/job fair. We have lots of tools, and all of our job postings are listed there as well. So we're hiring staff as we speak. We're hoping to hire at levels basically pre-pandemic levels, so that we can ramp up participation if the county keeps improving from red to turquoise. We want to have all the staff on hand ready to go so that we can expand when that happens. So registration for youth programs will be pretty similar to years past. Community centers and multi-generational centers will open up the lottery process for 2 weeks, starting at the beginning of May. Then we draw names like the middle of May, and if your name is drawn, you can register. We do plan to train staff in early June, and then all of those programs will start in mid-June. It's so important that we train our staff and make sure that they're prepared, especially with all the COVID protocols that we've established over the last year. And we really have those down now, so we're excited to be able to keep training our staff on those. I do want to mention that the Department of Arts and Culture is working on developing a mixture of in-person and virtual programs for this summer. Their programs will start registration in April and then go into May, and we'll be releasing more dates as they become available and as things start opening up to bigger crowds. On that note, though, the biopark still has openings for its virtual spring break camp, so you can check that out. And then last, I know everyone's always really excited about everything that Parks and Rec has to offer, especially with the pools and racket sports. So their registration will also begin in early May, and their earliest programs will start in early June. So we are slated to just get started. Of course, we'll be able to ramp up as things get better. All of this information will be posted at yc.cabq.gov once we're ready for registration dates and information. So that's the best website you can go to for all things youth in the city. We keep it updated. There's things updated right now that you can register for. And then as we start getting those registrations for summer going, they will be posted at that website as well. So we're really excited. I'll kick it back to you, Mayor.
All right, sure. Thank you so much, Kristen. Okay, all right, there we go. So really appreciate that. And so again, I think what is at a high level, we've been able to sort of push back some of the registration, but in a good way, because we want to have better visibility on how many kids we can take. And so basically we're going to kind of redo this in April. And that's where we're going to tell you like April 15th and May 3rd and so forth. The good news is no one has to, rush and sign up in March. And also, we're betting on the fact that hopefully we're going to be in green so we can accommodate more kids, if not further. So that's the way we're handling this. And this actually is almost exactly the same way we did it last year. We had that same sort of staggered and delayed start to the registration. And a reminder too, everything does fall under the COVID safe protocols. So there's like mask requirements, there's screening at the front end, there's social distancing, there's pod sizes and so forth. Okay, so I think with that, we will take some questions if there are any. And so I'll hand it over to, I guess, Matt or whoever's coordinating.
Yeah, good afternoon. Let's give folks just a few seconds here. We have a couple questions coming in. All right, so Tessa has a few different questions. We're going to go ahead and unmute Tessa. Let's start with the vaccine questions and then go into the youth questions from there.
Hi, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Mayor Keller and Kristen. First question, with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine getting approved, what talks have city leaders had as far as what that vaccine, what role it could play in the city's vaccination efforts, since it's the one shot, obviously? And want to go ahead and answer that, and then I can get into the other questions if that helps everybody?
Yeah, let's do them one at a time.
Sure, by category or whatever you'd like. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, our discussions right now are really around how best to utilize the flexibility. And it comes in two forms. One is that it's only one shot, but also that it doesn't require the same level of cold storage. And so for us, it's really two categories that would be good for. Areas where we're behind, in other words, we haven't quite caught up, whether it's a particular type of profession or something to that effect where we need to catch up because you can do it in one shot instead of having to wait for a month later so that person's vaccinated. So it's specific narrow categories where we're behind, or it's hard to get to populations. So this could be in rural New Mexico, or it could be in areas where there's individuals with different disabilities and they can't get out and so forth. So for this first batch, and 17,000 is great news. It's also not that much, but those are the two categories that I think it's a best fit for.
And Tessa,
Thank you very much. My next question regarding youth programs. We know there is a huge statewide debate regarding just youth sports in general, not even at the high school level. So for those concerned parents and kids, what youth programs could the city implement, if any, before getting to the turquoise level?
So we are looking at relevant programs you could do, especially with smaller kids where we can have fewer numbers. So like, for example, if it's less than 10. So we are interested in our full range of rec programs that are available right now with respect to, it's not a league competition, right? Because that's not allowed. But, can you do versions of things like outside basketball and essentially under the practice criteria? We're very interested in that. And so we're putting together a plan that we'll ask the state for permission for, but it's going to really ask to allow us to do COVID safe versions of any sport that we can, especially outdoor sports. And so we're going to try that. We also really want little leagues to be permissible as well. And so, we're going to put together the plan. We'll see what color we're in and we'll see what the Department of Health says, but we will certainly be asking and pushing for as much sports as possible.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate giving me so much time. My final question is in regard to restrictions and enforcement, because we have moved into the yellow. So I'm wondering if you have seen an increase, a decrease, a plateauing of citations or reports of businesses not necessarily following the current yellow level restriction guidelines.
Yes, and we do continue to track that. And the over the weekend, what we've seen is since we went yellow, we've seen a real dropping off of calls into 311 and into our complaints into our either restaurant inspectors or our code inspectors, or even the folks out at parks and so forth. So in fact, the last number off the top of my head, I think we were down to 50 enforcement efforts. That's down from hundreds, even 500 at one point. So we are still doing enforcement, and we're still doing monitoring, and we're focusing on compliance. And right now, folks usually also just come in with questions, hey, what can I do? What can I do? Or they'll call in, is this allowed? Is this not? And so the fire marshal's office has those details if you want to follow up with them on it. But things have been much, much less with respect to incoming requests for enforcement and so forth. Now, we are looking at a couple of real tough nuts to crack on that front, like how do we open something like the isotopes, or how is it going to work for concert venues? So right now, that's also what enforcement is looking at is, okay, here's what will keep everyone healthy and safe. And then, can you deliver on that, or can the entity, the tenant of the facility, or can you play under those rules and so forth? So they're also really working forward on how do we work with these new areas of yellow. And so that's really what the marshal's office and food enforcement and code enforcement have been thinking through, even things like farmers markets and all of those type outdoor activities.
Okay, those are the only questions we've gotten so far, so I think we can wrap it up, Mayor.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks very much. We'll be back again if we try and do this off cycle from the state. So if there's big changes, we'll see you next week. Otherwise, we'll see you the week after. And